Transcribe, The Art of Alchemy is a roll and write game of engine building. This print and play is the debut game of the Australian folks at Real Magic Studios. Transcribe is a competitive game for up to 12 players, but it has a solo mode in which you compete against a bot. This is what I will be reviewing in this video. For this video I was sent the print and play files by the designers. Note that the game is still going through playtesting and rules are subject to change. Transcribe is an easy-to-learn, hard-to-master game of roll and write with more strategy than meets the eye. The game looks great with its nice sepia tones, even if the theme doesn't hide the fact that it's still a fairly abstract game. As a solo gamer, it might take a few attempts before figuring out a strategy that works against the AI opponent, and the possibility to create your own maps will ensure some amount of replayability. Transcribe is very easy to print and there are no complex components to assemble. You simply have to print a couple of sheets per play session. Additionally, you'll need 1 or 2 dice and a pen. You can also of course sleeve the paper to use erasable pens, or if you play solo, you can also possibly play on a tablet or a computer by loading the pictures in your favorite editor. The art on the game has great looking sepia tones, and this works great with the alchemy / middle age astrology theme of the game, but honestly don't expect much more than that when it comes to the theme. It looks good, but it remains fairly abstract. My first session with Transcribe was surprisingly easy, and I did an okay score, although I had a very hard time setting up an engine that wasn't completely confusing to me. To be honest, I was ready to dismiss it as too simple initially, and it took me a few more games to understand that I was very wrong. As a matter of fact, even though my first game went okay, the handful of ones I did after that were brutal, with the AI opponent beating me terribly. This motivated me to play more. The gameplay in Transcribe is extremely simple to grasp. Each turn, you roll a die. This lets you activate one of the rows or columns of your engine to travel on the map. Depending on where you land with your movement, you might acquire elements to improve your engine or metals for points. Acquiring a given metal before the other players, or in the case of solo mode before the bot, will grant you bonus points. Additionally, you will want to use the metals to build your magnus opus, which rewards you with a significant bonus. As such, most turns on Transcribe are typically a choice between improving your engine to go further, faster, or to move closer to the locations of precious metals to acquire them before anybody else. It's also a balancing act between upgrading your engine and progressing on the completion of your magnus opus. Once one of the players has completed their magnus opus, this triggers the end game. A few additional rounds are played, after which the player with the most points wins. The solo mode plays against a simulated opponent with a very simple system. It plays very much like a real opponent in the sense that they'll try to acquire elements and complete their magnus opus before you, and their score at the end is calculated just like a normal player. After playing with Transcribe for a few days, here's what I think of the game. Transcribe is extremely easy to play. The first session might take about an hour to get used to the rules, but after that, in my experience, a solo session can easily be done in under 20 minutes. But it doesn't mean it is easy to win. There is a strategy to beat the solo opponent, and I assume it must be quite similar to winning against real-life opponents. Without spoiling too much, a lot of the strategy is in being first as often as possible. This might sound obvious, but it took me a few games to realize that rushing for the highest point metals from the start wasn't the right idea. Bottom line, it took me several attempts to figure out a working strategy, and that particular aspect was fun for me. This leaves me wondering, however, once you've got your strategy more or less ironed out, how long the multiple maps and map editor will help to keep the game fresh as a solo gamer. Not a big deal considering it's a small-scale game, but maybe something to keep in mind. I didn't have that much fun with the engine building aspect of the game though. After a few rounds, the options to travel on the map can become exponentially convoluted. I found that part a bit tedious, to the point that I constantly tried to get the brake engine upgrade, which allows to simplify a lot of the travel. To rephrase, I never really felt that I was improving my engine, just making it different. As such, some of my turns felt a bit complex without being extremely satisfying. Again, that's just my opinion, and that part might actually be very satisfying to you. I want to touch base on the theme of the game, which I found very light. The game looks gorgeous, no question about that, but at no point did I think that I was an alchemist charting a map of the stars or building some fantastic piece of machinery. Of course, not all games need to be the most thematic roleplay you've ever had, but just something you'll want to be aware of. With all of that being said, I had fun playing Transcribe in my solo sessions. The fact that the game is so easy to play might be the best appeal to me, because it's very easy to get back to it even if you haven't played for a while. At the end of the day, Transcribe is a pretty well-made roll and write game with a good solo mode. The game is easy to play, hard to master, and if you're like me as a solo gamer, you'll probably have a lot of fun trying to figure out how to beat the solo bot consistently. Transcribe isn't without flaws. For example, I personally had a hard time enjoying the engine building aspect, and I found the theme to be anecdotal, but as far as print and play games go, it's a very competent one. With multiple maps and a map editor to keep things fresh if you're looking for additional challenges, I think it's worth a try for solo gamers. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time.